The Republican presidential candidates took on the issues, the Democrats, and each other on stage in Cleveland last night. The candidates talked about everything from the economy to Iraq to Planned Parenthood and God.
Frontrunner Donald Trump got plenty of attention in the spotlight, but all of the candidates got a chance to make their case. David Brody brings us the story from Cleveland.
Going in, it was considered one of the most anticipated presidential debates ever. The reason? Donald Trump. And it didn't take long for fireworks, as each candidate was asked if they would pledge not to run as an independent if they didn't win the GOP nomination. Only Trump, the frontrunner, refused to commit.
You can't say tonight that you can make that pledge.
I cannot say.
Then Trump's night got worse when Megyn Kelly brought up some of his past remarks about women.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct.
While Trump took some lumps, candidates like Governor Chris Christie and Senator Rand Paul went after one another. One exchange centered on the federal government's role in collecting private American records.
I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from innocent Americans.
That's a completely ridiculous answer. I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from other people. How are you supposed to know, Megyn?
Use the Fourth
What are you supposed
Amendment.
to? How are you supposed
Use
to?
the Fourth
No, I'll tell you how you
Get a warrant.
Let me tell you something.
Get
you go
a judge to sign
when
a warrant.
Senator.
Go ahead, wait, Governor Christie, make your point.
Listen, Senator, when you're sitting in a subcommittee just blowing hot air about this, you can say things like that.
Meanwhile, the candidates all tried to differentiate themselves. Brain surgeon Ben Carson explained his uniqueness among his peers.
The only one to take out half of a brain, although you would think if you go to Washington that someone had beat me to it. But
others, like top-tier candidate Jeb Bush, came to this debate with a lot to prove. While he stumbled recently, Bush answered forcefully on the sensitive subject of his brother's decision to go to war in Iraq.
It was a mistake. I wouldn't have gone in.
Candidates also got the opportunity to take on Democrat frontrunner Hillary Clinton.
If I'm our nominee, how is Hillary Clinton going to lecture me about living paycheck to paycheck? I was raised paycheck to paycheck.
The Russian and Chinese government know more about Hillary Clinton's email server than do the members of the United States Congress.
Social issues like abortion also came up, which played to Mike Huckabee's advantage.
The Supreme Court is not the supreme being, and we change the policy to be pro-life and protect children instead of rip up their body parts and sell them like they're parts to a Buick.
And God also made it into the list of questions when candidates were asked if they've received a word from him on what they should do and take care of first.
I am blessed to receive a word from God every day and receiving the scriptures and reading the scriptures, and God speaks through the Bible.
In the earlier debate between lower polling candidates, former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina received positive reviews, and she had no problem taking a swipe at the frontrunner Trump.
Since he has changed his mind on amnesty, on health care, and on abortion, I would just ask, what are the principles by which he will govern?
The next time all of these candidates will be together on the same stage will be next month in California at the Reagan Library. It's all part of a very long and winding road that actually comes back here to Cleveland next summer. That's where they'll hold the GOP convention, and that's where they'll choose a nominee for their one-on-one matchup. David Brody, CBN News in Cleveland, Ohio.
Well, lots of political theater in the future and some free campaign advice for Donald Trump. If it's 3 a.m., you don't want to be on your Twitter account, and you're not running against Megyn Kelly. Well, in other news, President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran has taken a major hit in Congress after two leading Democrats have come out against it. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. New York Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer just announced he will oppose the agreement. As a leading Democrat with a history of support for Israel, many were watching to see how he'd vote. But as Charlene Amron reports, he's not the only leading Democrat against the deal.
President Obama has been pushing hard for congressional approval for the U.S. nuclear deal with Iran. Republicans are united in their opposition of the deal, saying Iran can't be trusted and that the U.S. and its allies could have reached a better deal. But the president disagrees, and he defended the agreement in a major speech Wednesday, making headlines when he compared hardliners in Iran to Republicans who opposed the deal.
In fact, it's those hardliners who are most comfortable with the status quo. It's those hardliners chanting death to America who've been most opposed to the deal. They're making common cause with the Republican caucus.
But it's not just Republicans opposing the plan. Chuck Schumer, expected to be the next Democratic leader of the Senate, has become the first Democrat in the Senate to oppose the agreement, saying, "After deep study, careful thought, and considerable soul-searching, I have decided I must oppose the agreement and will vote yes on a motion of disapproval." He added, "In making my decision, I examined this deal in 3 parts. Nuclear restrictions on Iran in the first 10 years, nuclear restrictions on Iran after 10 years, and non-nuclear components and consequences of a deal. In each case, I have asked, are we better off with the agreement or without it?" Schumer's no vote hurts the president's efforts to win support of Senate Democrats, but other Democrats have also voiced concerns. Representative Eliot Engel of New York, the leading Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, has also come out against the deal, despite a one-on-one meeting with the president last week. Congress is set to vote on the deal next month. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. The governor of Alabama is defunding Planned Parenthood in his state. Governor Robert Bentley is terminating Alabama's Medicaid contract with the organization after undercover videos showed Planned Parenthood administrators discussing prices for the body parts of unborn babies. Bentley said, "As a doctor and Alabama's governor, the issue of human life from conception to birth and beyond is extremely important to me." He went on to say, "I respect human life and I do not want Alabama to be associated with an organization that does not." Alabama follows Louisiana and New Hampshire, which have made similar moves to defund the abortion provider. The government of the Southeast Asian country of Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, says it needs help in flood relief and rehabilitation for more than 200,000 people displaced by the flooding and landslides. CBN disaster relief teams have responded to the crisis, reaching out to isolated villages. Lucille Toulousan brings us that story from Myanmar.
Villages have been cut off from water and food supply after Cyclone Comin lashed through Myanmar, followed by heavy monsoon rains. The massive flooding and landslides left more than 63 people dead and over 200,000 displaced. In the past, the military government refused international help, but the current quasi-civilian government is now appealing for assistance. Ujo Zin, deputy officer of Shrivo district, says the destruction to 500,000-acre rice field is the worst he's seen in this area.
This is really worse, and it has affected our farmers. The government will help them plant again. But at present, they need food supplies, and we are happy that you can help us.
CBN Humanitarian and Disaster Relief has partnered with the local government and churches to respond to the immediate needs of the flood victims.
Here are our volunteers from our church partners, and they are putting together some relief goods that are going to be distributed to the flood victims. So this bag has oil, sardines, salt, rice, and the most important of all, water.
Cooked meals have also been prepared to give for people stranded in Jiangshado. The village was isolated when flood waters washed away their only bridge. The CBN team transported much-needed supplies in small boats, braving strong currents just to bring relief to these isolated areas. Although the villagers had to walk through deep waters and thick mud, they were very happy to receive the much-needed help.
We are very grateful that you can come here in spite of the difficulty. We have food for our families that can last for the next several days. We hope you can come here again.
CBN teams are now working to identify more villages that lack food and water, bringing relief to flood victims who, in the midst of calamity, desperately need help and hope. Lucille Toulousan, CBN News, Sagaing, Myanmar.
Gordon, I read one report that said people weren't sleeping at night because they were so afraid of the rising floodwaters.
Well, it's a horrible human tragedy there, and if you want to be a part of the relief. We like to say when disasters strike, we want to strike back with love and compassion and very tangible aid in their time of need. And if you want to be a part of it, just give us a call, 1-800-759-0700. Just say, I want to give to the CBN Disaster Relief Fund. You can also write to us, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463, or you can log on to cbn.com. There's a place on the giving page where you can designate your gift to the Disaster Relief Fund.